You ever watch one of those YouTube videos that move so slow that you have to skip around to find what you're looking for, but then you can't find what you're looking for because you keep skipping around? This is not going to be one of those YouTube videos. Matter of fact, you're going to think, dude, you're a freak of nature, slow down. Welcome to creating your first EC2 instance in Amazon Web Services. This will allow you to get your first server running in the cloud. And I've brought up right here the laundry list of steps that I'm going to run through. I'm going to make a big assumption, and that is that you know how to get an Amazon Web Services account. It's actually really easy, as long as you have a good credit rating, because it takes a credit card and a phone number. Once you verify those two things, you're in. Now, first thing that we're going to look at when we create our first server is to choose the location. Very easy to miss because most people jump straight here to EC2, which is what all these other services hinge around. Essentially, they're feeders to the servers that are running inside the cloud. The default place that you will be creating your server is North Virginia. That's just because that's where Amazon Web Services began. It's their biggest region, as in they have the most data centers and resources there, but you don't have to stay there. Chances are you want to create it at a data center near you. Now, I happen to live in Arizona, so I'm going to hit the drop down and go to North California. Do keep in mind that prices do vary on these servers. They charge on a per hour basis, and North California happens to be one of the most expensive regions that you can create it in. I'm sure you can guess why. Now I'm going to go over to the instances and look right here. I've got a Ubuntu email server sitting in park, meaning I have it powered off. The only thing that I'm paying for is the storage that thing is eating up, kind of just sitting there idle right now. I'm not actually paying to run that server. So I'm going to click on Launched Instance. Now just to make sure we catch where we are, we've chosen our location, which is North California. Now we're going to choose the type. So I'm going to come in here and choose the Classic Wizard. They have a quick launch. It's scary because you click a button and poof, you have a server. You don't really have much option to customize it. They also have an AWS marketplace where you can essentially pay people to run their servers that they've created for you. So I'm going to click on Classic Wizard, hit continue, and choose what kind of server I'd like to create. Now, Amazon has a really sweet deal with Microsoft that includes all the licensing costs and the per hour charges that you pay for this thing. Also, you can see that they have Ubuntu, they have SUSE, they've got their own little flavor of Linux that Amazon has created. So for this illustration, I'm going to create a Windows Server 2008 R2 base. Now, right here, it's going to ask, where do you want to create it? Now, it's going to ask what availability zone, which translated to English means what data center. As in, when you go to now North California, there are two data centers that exist, West 1A and West 1C. B burned up in a blazing fire. Actually, I have no idea, but it's missing B. So one of two data centers, or you can just say, Amazon, I don't care, pick for me. I'm going to pick it so I know where it's going to be created. That's West 1A. Now, I also see this drop down. Matter of fact, this is going to be where I go. The spot instances. Spot instances are bidding wars, meaning I'm going to bid for a server that in this case runs 0.007. That's not 7 pennies. That's a seventh of a penny per hour to run the server. Now, you know, that's if you go with a T1 micro instance. You can see the resources grow depending on the type of server that you want to create. I'm not going to run Windows Server 2008 R2 on a micro instance. Why? Because it's going to die. Because you only have essentially essentially you get the scraps left over of Amazon processing when you go with the micro instances. That's why they give it to you for free for a year when you first sign up. I'm going to go for something a little beefier. Why? Because I'm going with a spot instance request, and I know that I can get a pretty killer server, which you can see I've got 8 cores, 26 ECUs, that's elastic computing units, kind of how Amazon rates their processing resources. For right now, the going rate is about 40 cents an hour. That's insane. Now, keep in mind with spot instances, if somebody outbids me, my server immediately terminates. But you know what? For my wallet and this demonstration, that's going to be what I'm after. I'm going to let's throw a major bid out there, 0.78 cents. That's right. I'm not getting outbid on this. I'm going to say, I'm going to put this in West 1A. That's what I was going to do when I was going to go with the on-demand instance in the launch instances. I'm going to hit continue. I've now chosen the type of server. Can I review that with you? I've chosen a high memory quadruple extra large beefy server. If Al Borland from Tool Time was here, he'd be going, "Arr, arr." Actually, that's not Al Borland. That's Tim the Toolman Taylor. But nonetheless, he would be grunting at that because it is a beefy server. I see the maximum price that I've chosen. I've chosen where it's going to be. It's in North California, Data Center 1, we'll call it, 1A, and now I'm ready to go. I'm into the advanced instance options, which I'm not even going to touch. This is where you can turn on user data, you know, put some tags on there and actually use this data to, it's called bootstrap your server when it boots. I'm not even going to get into this. Most people just click continue, especially since this is your first one. This is a big informational screen right here. It is your storage. Every server that you create on Amazon starts off with what's called ephemeral storage. Actually, I think there's some exceptions with those micro servers, but nonetheless, ephemeral storage, if you look that up in the dictionary, it means temporary. It's going to die. And that's exactly the way it works, is with this server, it will live on one of the physical servers at Amazon, and as soon as you turn it off, it's going to be terminated from it, meaning it's going to be deleted. Now, you might say, what on earth would I do with a server that I'm going to power on and then delete? Well, that gets into the vision of Amazon Web Services, which is elastic computing. Not going to cover that here right now, but that's kind of the design, is there's no one server that you would really depend on, so they could get deleted and you'd be fine. So you've got these ephemeral storage. I'm looking, it's going to create a couple volumes for me. If I want to change that, I can remove these and create what's called EBS, Elastic Block Store, which is more permanent storage, but you're going to pay for that a little bit extra. So we're not going to do that right now. I'm going with my cheap spot instance of a beefy server, right? Now we're into the key pairs. Hold the phone, let's get our bearings. We've chosen the type, we've adjusted our storage, we've now gotten into selecting a key. What is the key? Well, Amazon actually doesn't want administrative access to your machines. They're saying, hey, we will host them for you, we will make sure you're in a solid data center that's going to be up all the time, every time, all that kind of stuff. But we do not want to get into your own security. It's kind of a shared security model that they have. This key pair is going to be your way of accessing your machines, and let me emphasize, only your way. So I'm going to create a new key pair, which is probably what you're going to do when you create your first instance, and we'll just call it Jeremy's Keys. Right? Click on create and download the key pair, and I'll see in the lower left hand corner here Jeremy's Keys.pem. That's actually the private side of my key, essentially an encryption formula that only Amazon doesn't have it, only I have that, which will allow me to access my machine out of the box. Now we're into our security group. A security group is essentially a firewall, not within the machine, outside of the machine. Amazon's like, hey, this is going to be a directly connected to the internet server. We will set up a firewall for you. I'm going to create a new security group, or essentially a new firewall, and we'll call this custom Windows Firewall. Group description, obviously the name is pretty implied. And I'm going to say, I'm going to allow, let's just say this is going to be a web server. Again, we have to find out what's the role of our servers that anybody can access. I'm also going to say, I want to be able to access this remotely. Now, this is scary, and people that open remote desktop protocol to the world are scary people, because that means that anybody in the world can start attacking your servers, meaning trying to log on with usernames and passwords from wherever they are. But for this demonstration, that's great. So I'm going to click on continue because we've allowed RDP, so I can access it remotely, stuff, and we've allowed HTTP, which means the web server portion of this, and we are ready to go. Submit. We now have our machine powering on, sitting in region A, we'll call it data center A, of a spot instance. So it's right now bidding, it's pending evaluation. Everybody's saying, okay, is he going to be able to get in and get this machine for that price of 78 cents? Now keep in mind that's the max price. That's not going to be what I pay for it. It's probably going to be under that. So it's evaluating, it's then going to kick up this server and start it running. I'm going to bring it back once that's done, and we'll connect to it. It's done and I'm ready. So let's head over to the instances, and I can see right there is my beefy server. I'm going to click on that guy, and the key information that I get from here, I can see all the stats about it, but this right here gives the public DNS name of that server. That's right. It gets a public IP address. It gets a public DNS name that I can connect to right away. So I'm going to open up my remote desktop connection, click on it, paste in that DNS name, and hit connect, and bam, I've got my credentials. Now I'm stuck because I don't know what the credentials are. So as part of the connect phase, we need to use that security key that we created right here to decrypt it. If you right click on this server, it's going to give you the option to get the Windows password. So I'll click on that. It's going to say, hey, this is great, but I need the private key called jeremykeys.pem. So I'm going to choose the file right there in my downloads directory. Click on open, and it fills in the private key, decrypt password, and I now have the administrator password for this. Now, with that, I can go back to my remote desktop connection, fill in administrator, paste in the password, and hey, look at that. That's a good sign, saying that I'm now going to get connected to that server. Now, I can come into that server and change the administrative password, and Amazon will never know about it. Matter of fact, it will, if I go back to this, it doesn't update this at all and suddenly know my new decrypted password that I changed it to, because I've gone outside of Amazon Web Services. I'm now inside of my instance right here. So it's logging on for the first time. It's going to be a little slow chugging along. But once it's there, we now have our first server up and running. Did anyone realize just how amazing that was? We just brought up a killer server in a great data center in North California for 39 cents. Now think about what that would cost if you wanted to do that on your own in your own data center. That's what Amazon Web Services is all about. If you like this, I encourage you to come to CBT Nuggets. I've got a whole series on Amazon Web Services. Check it out. For now, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.